This is the Work at Home Heroes podcast. Your host, Caitlin Pyle, digs deep with people from all over the world who make money from home. Get ready to wake up to a world of possibility for freedom, flexibility, and a life you'll love.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Work at Home Heroes podcast. I am here with Natalie Williams, and she's a 24-year-old from America, North America, who said heck no to the American style of hustle, and she packed her life into a 40-liter size backpack in search of the unknown. She had a one-way ticket to Southeast Asia. It's just a funny story about that, and she thought she was going to Saigon, Vietnam, but she had a one-way ticket to Saipan. I had never heard of that, and I don't think she had either, but she had accidentally bought the wrong ticket. Anyway, she's back in living nomadically for 6 months, and she's teaching English online to fund a beautiful life now in Bali, of all places. Welcome to the show, Natalie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you are currently in, is it Ubud, Bali in Indonesia?
Yeah, living in Ubud for about 6 months now.
Excellent. And you're an online English teacher to kids in China. Is that correct?
I am, yeah.
How did you get into that?
I had taught English abroad in South Korea for a year, and I just realized how big the market for it, how many companies there were doing it. I thought, why not give that a shot next?
So normally I get this objection all the time because you had heard that a lot of people were doing it, a lot of companies were doing it, and sometimes people allow that to keep them from trying it because they're like, oh, well, there's already enough people teaching English. Was there a time where you thought that as well and you decided you're going to do it anyway, or were you encouraged by the fact that a lot of people were doing it?
I mean, I definitely had that thought of well, there are so many people doing it. Why would they want me? But I really enjoyed teaching when I did in person, and I had never done any type of work online before. Just the curiosity drove me to, well, let's see, maybe it is a good fit for me and for them.
Excellent. And so when I introduced you, you had said you don't want to do this American thing anymore. How would you describe that American hustle?
I just have this reoccurring image that comes up of me in this rush hour traffic, everyone honking and fighting with each other, people trying to race by, getting in car accidents, chugging coffee, chain smoking cigarettes, just always so busy, no time for your family or any hobbies, just going out to bars and drinking because you don't realize you're not happy with your life. Wow, I just feel a lot of that when I think of the American hustle.
Yeah. And in your application, and for those of you who don't know, we have an application process for guests on the Work at Home Heroes podcast. And in your application, Natalie, you had said that you realized that nomadic backpacking, the lifestyle that you had thought of, and you maybe had put it on a pedestal. And I've totally been there because I traveled through South America and I'm like, this wasn't really my style. So what did you decide that you liked better than the nomadic lifestyle?
I just realized that I do so much better with a home base. I like my stuff. I like my books. I just kind of like my space, not sleeping with 14 to 25 strangers in one room. So, just really liked having the time to kind of create projects and meet people. And I felt when I was backpacking, I was just I don't really know what I'm doing today. I guess I'm doing this. So I just do a lot better having a home base.
Yeah, a lot of us are creatures of routine, and I discovered for myself that I am as well. And I do like the home base. I like to be able to go and travel, but then always return back to home and recalibrate, recharge my batteries, and then go out on another adventure. So tell me, speaking of adventure, about Bali. What's life like there? Is it expensive? Is it cheap?
Oh, Bali is so dreamy, as one would imagine. But it's not as expensive as America, for sure. But in Southeast Asia, it is a bit more expensive than other countries such as Thailand or Vietnam. Still so doable to live very comfortably and lushly. You can rent a beautiful villa, 2 bedrooms with a pool and a jungle view, or a garden for maybe $300 a month. I don't know what $300 would get me living in North America, but not that.
Nothing.
Yeah. Life is just really relaxed and kind of just that slower island vibe. And I really love that.
Awesome. And so let's talk about your teaching English to kids in China from Bali. What kind of income can you earn doing that?
It is a little bit of your discretion because you can work as much or as little as you want, given the time difference, depending where you are. Obviously, the kids also go to school all day, so you wouldn't be working that time. I work about 3 hours a day, not every day. I kind of pick and choose by the week. I mean, you could make anywhere from $1,500 a month to $3,000 a month if you really wanted to do that. It's a pretty good range to live how I'm living, for sure.
If you don't mind me asking, how much income are you generating and how much are you working each week to generate that income?
I work maybe 15 hours a week, 3 hours a day, and I can make about $1,500 a month. They offer so many bonuses and incentives each month. You get bonuses for like referring friends. I meet so many people traveling that are like, I want to do that. Sign me up. That number just kind of adds up pretty quickly.
That's really cool. And with your rent being $300 a month, that's a lot of cushion that you can go and try new foods and do adventure traveling and maybe do some zip lining and kayaking, stuff like that. Because I imagine it is quite beautiful and quite sunny in Bali. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. Average maybe 90 degrees on the beach. I'm actually home visiting my family in America right now, and it's the dead of the winter. So I'm like, oh my gosh, get me back to the beach.
Yeah, for sure. Well, speaking of your beach life now, I want to go back in time a little bit. I want to talk to you about what your life looked like before you started working from Bali. So working in Bali Hero you are. What did your life look like before all this?
Before all of this, I had just graduated from university and I just felt all of that pressure of, okay, it's time for you to be a real person. You should get a full-time job that has insurance and set up your retirement fund and buy a house. But I knew even then that was never anything that I kind of wanted. So I moved into a house with 6 strangers from Craigslist. I hadn't met any of them, but that seemed like a good way to rebel against the American hustle. I got 3 odd jobs that were super odd hours. I was very excited to do all of them. They were things that I was passionate about, but at the same time, the combination of the odd hours and the odd work, that didn't leave much time for me to do anything else. So I was very much just in a different way than other people who maybe work like a 9-to-5 lifestyle, working a lot and just back in that robotic lifestyle as well. Didn't have time to do anything I wanted, and I barely got any sleep, and I just was like going through the motions of life.
It sounds like you had created a life for yourself, not intentionally. I don't think anybody ever does it intentionally. You were kind of just working to pay your bills, and that was your life. It was some semblance of a life, but the whole purpose of it was just to pay the bills, and it didn't include your student loans. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. The salary that I made was very much just to pay my rent, to pay my car insurance, and maybe I had a little bit to go out with my friends here and there. Yeah, no, I was not making too much with my 3 odd jobs.
And the crazy thing is with those 3 jobs, you were earning about the same as you earn now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And now I'm only working 3 hours a day and making that salary. It just still blows my mind.
Wow, that's crazy. Was there a moment between that life and now where you just kind of snapped and said, that is it? There's no more. I'm not doing this to myself anymore. I want to work for myself and I'm going to make this happen. Did you have a moment like that?
There wasn't really a specific moment. I think it was an accumulation of just like, what are you doing? You're so miserable. You're the zombie that you used to see in people. And what are you doing? And I could just tell that I was really, really, really unhappy. And yeah, I just was like, nope, give all of this away. I'm ready for something new.
And were you confident from the start when that happened? Or were there any mental or emotional challenges or obstacles that you faced when you were making that transition?
Oh, absolutely. I was terrified. I had never done anything like that ever before. It was for sure terrifying. And I had a lot of doubts. I had a lot of fears. I had a lot of unknown. Just looking at the spectrum of it, what could be and what I had, I knew that there was so much more out there than what I was doing. I just knew it. There was something intuitively telling me, all right, you don't know, but you have got to go for this.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us deal with fear because it can be terrifying. But when you feel like you've almost created your own prison in a way that you described, it came off to me with the life that you created yourself. You didn't do it on purpose, but that's just what you'd ended up with. You created this prison for yourself. You don't have anything to lose. And so it makes it a little bit easier to take that jump at that point because you know it could hardly get any worse because you want to make it better at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely don't blame you. It makes it easier to say sayonara, no pun intended, to that's Japanese, isn't it? Geez, how terrible. Easier to just say goodbye to the life you don't like when you don't like it, right? If you don't like it, it's easier to make changes. So let's talk about what your life looks like now. How specifically has your life improved since you started working in Bali, working at home, wherever you are?
It's kind of a dream life, literally what I used to fantasize about when I was sitting in my car chugging day-old coffee on the freeway. I wake up with no alarm. I have my coffee at a leisurely pace, and that is something that I really value, just like that time in the morning. That's totally my time. I can go to yoga class, I can meditate, I can work at my leisure on projects, meet friends for lunch whenever I want, go to the beach, really an emphasis on lifestyle and the things that are important to me, and self-studying, yoga and that sort of stuff. Those come first now and not work. And that's awesome.
I would say, and I'm sure from what you just said, that you'd agree with me that putting ourselves first, it needs to happen, because if we don't, then we suffer, and everybody around us suffers too. But if you put yourself first, you value that time first thing in the morning, then it kind of ripples out. I love the ripple effect. I talk about it all the time. It ripples out into other areas of our lives. So how has putting yourself first impacted your work? Do you enjoy your work more now that you take care of yourself better?
Oh, absolutely. Every spectrum of life is so much more in the flow and so much happier overall, because you do have the time and you're fully rested on a good night's sleep. It definitely plays a huge, huge factor.
Yeah. And one thing that really stood out to me in your application was that you said you didn't have any idea that you didn't have to live the American dream, or you didn't have any idea that it wasn't actually a dream at all. Can you expand on that a little bit? I love that, because I 100% agree. What is the American dream to you? And then how did you realize that it wasn't a dream at all?
Well, I guess that really stems from where and how I grew up. I'm from a really, really small town, and everyone just kind of goes through the motions. You go to high school, you go to college, you get a job, you get married, that's it. So that really formed my thought on the American dream. Okay, great. I'm totally going to do all of that. That's cool. I can live in this small town forever, because I wasn't around people who were doing other things, and then I could know there was another way of life. And even when I graduated university, it was like, I'm moving to the city, the big city of St. Louis. I still wasn't even around people who were really truly living the way that I knew that I wanted to live. So once that all broke and I got out of it, and I was living in South Korea, and I saw everyone living the way I wanted to live, we just bounce ideas off of each other, and that energy just fuels you. So that's also goes back to the truth of you are who you surround yourself with. That was definitely kind of the shattering of the American dream for me.
Yeah, just realizing that it's kind of an outdated ideal that, you're supposed to live in a house and get married and have kids and work a job 9 to 5 every day and commute and buy a new car every 3 years. That doesn't sound like a dream to me at all. I mean, not the family part of it, of course. Family is very important to me, but just going through the motions kind of thing, not my idea of a good time. Although I do like my routine, I love adventure as well. And there's so much in the world to experience. And so I love hearing stories from people that are out there and experiencing what the world has to offer and using real skills to facilitate that, which is exactly what you're doing. So let's step back a little bit, because you mentioned, you are the people that you surround yourself with. So let's talk about that. And during your journey thus far, have you had to deal with unsolicited feedback or concerns, or maybe some insults from friends or family in your immediate influence?
Oh, absolutely. My parents, they've come to a really great level of acceptance now, but for the last 2 or 3 years, really, it's just like, oh my God, what are you doing with your life? When are you going to get a real job? When are you going to start thinking about your retirement? All of that sort of a thing. How are you ever going to go to a job interview with all these random jobs that you've had? Just really, really not seeing things at all the way that I see them. And that's totally fine. But now they've really come around. Oh, maybe you did have it together all along, whether you knew you did or you didn't, but they've definitely come around now.
Yeah, now they're looking at you wondering if maybe you had it right all along. Do they work regular jobs themselves? And maybe they're thinking, maybe she's onto something.
Yeah, they've worked the same job now, maybe 20 to 30 years. And they are to that age of looking towards retirement, but still is very fearful, because that's a really big jump as well. And there's a lot of unknown. But yeah, they definitely look at how I'm living and think, wow, well, if we just took off now, and we moved abroad, we'd probably have enough money to live like you do as well. It's interesting to see them kind of coming to that place.
Maybe one day your parents will be in Bali. How crazy would that be?
We definitely joke about it, yes.
Life is about so much more than money. And I think that that's the common concern. We're just societally conditioned by these messages in the media that that's the American dream, that you go get a real job and that you retire at 65. Well, what if you're doing something that you love with your life, with your time, day in and day out, that you don't even want to retire? What is this thing, retirement? What is this? I don't even know what that is. And when I was traveling more nomadically back in 2015, 2016, I wrote an article, and this is before I realized that nomadic travel was not for me, but I wrote an article and I said it was called Why I'm Traveling Forever and Retiring Never. And it was basically about that concept of, what is retirement, and would you really want to retire if you're living a life that you love and that gets you excited every day, and if you're doing work that fuels you and your life becomes your work because you love it so much and that's something you're passionate about. And so for me, I feel like that's the American dream, is that you create a life that you love so much that retirement becomes a non-issue and you are able to generate income at any age using skills. So that's just kind of where my thoughts are with that. Stepping back in time a little bit, we talked a little bit about how you start your day. You don't have an alarm. You drink your coffee very leisurely, meditate, do some soul work. How do you keep yourself on track? Like, you have so much fun during the day. What is it like when you have to sit down and do work? Is there ever a moment where you're like, I don't feel like working, and you kind of procrastinate or anything like that?
That definitely comes, but sometimes I just find myself in this state of flow that I've never been in any time of my life before. And you just kind of are doing it and not thinking about it. Probably, yeah, because I am excited about it. And like, I just kind of think, the pros outweigh the cons in that sense. Yes, don't get me wrong. I'm totally human and I want to procrastinate. I guess when you have so much time to do what you really want to do, you can just get in a good mindset of, we really work just a little and then we play all day. So let's just do this right now.
I love it. Yeah. And I think it makes it easier to work when you've played out during the day, you've done the things that you enjoy, and you feel ready. You're like, okay, it's like when I go on a cruise or a vacation or something like that, maybe halfway through, I start itching to get back to work, and I start questioning, what am I on this planet for if I'm not creating? What if I'm not producing? If I'm not getting results for people, things like that. And so I start making lists of the ideas I have, and you need that time for yourself. And so if you can incorporate that into your day, every day, I call them mini vacations, and it sounds like your mornings are a lot like that, where you just have this slow morning that you just ramp up and you get that momentum, give yourself what you need, then you can just approach things with a much better mindset. Well, Natalie, I'm very curious about what is next for you, because you're living this dream life in Bali. You've been there for 6 months and you're making plenty of money to support your lifestyle there. Do you have any plans to grow your business? What is next for you?
I do have some big things ready for 2018. I'm ready to start a coaching business. That has been my dream since I was 14. Literally, I did a 8th grade project on my dream job, and I said that I would be a life coach and motivational speaker. So I'm ready to step into that role and start helping people live on the other side of fear and really live the life of their dreams as well. Big things in store. Even getting on this podcast was a big everything you want's on the other side of fear. I was fearful, but you got to do it anyways if you want something.
Well, I'm going to give you a little life coaching practice. I'm going to ask you, what advice would you give to someone who's sitting there listening to this podcast, really wants to work at home, maybe wants to move to Bali, maybe wants to start teaching English, wants to do some of the things that you've been doing, but they're scared to get started? What advice would you give to those people?
I think really figuring out your why. Why are you scared? What are you afraid of? What's holding you back? Like really getting to the root of it all and releasing that stuff, because some of it can be pretty murky and you're maybe not even aware of what you're afraid of. I think once you kind of do some soul work on that, then you'll just go for it.
True. I absolutely agree with that. You've got to trust in the process and know too. And you said this in your application, which I loved, and I've highlighted it here. Practically speaking, if you want your life to change, you've got to do things you've never done before. And so if you're sitting there wanting something different for your life, you've got to be willing to do things to get to that thing that you've never done before. And so if you always do what you've always done, you always get what you've always got, is kind of the thing that I parrot, just repeating. You've got to be willing to do different things, maybe things that scare you, because if you keep doing the things you've always done, you're never going to get the thing that you never had, if that makes sense. And so I love that you said that in your application. Well, Natalie, I know that there's probably people that are very curious to get in touch with you. Where can people contact you if they've got questions or follow-ups about your life in Bali? Maybe just want to pick your brain a little bit while you relax with your coffee in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely. I can go ahead and send you my email and maybe you can put it in the podcast notes.
Okay, that sounds great. You guys, I'm going to put Natalie's contact information in the show notes. Thank you so much for being generous with your time, Natalie. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. And thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thank you.
Well, thanks again for listening, everyone. I hope you got some value from this episode. There will be links in the show notes. As always, feel free to join our Work at Home Heroes Facebook community where we discuss all the episodes in a dedicated thread. If you found this episode useful or any of the past episodes, I'd love it if you would leave us a review. It will help us reach more people with our message and keep bringing you these success stories. Talk to you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Work at Home Heroes podcast with Caitlin Pyle. Be sure to listen to previous episodes at caitlinpyle.co/podcast. While you're there, read the show notes and check out all the great links and resources mentioned in this episode and more. You can also subscribe to the Work at Home Heroes podcast so you'll automatically be notified when our next episode is available. Remember, as Caitlin says, mo skills means mo money.